when I look at the civil rights movement, it began, of course, with Rosa Parks. So I start with her story. When I get to the article on MLK, I kind of reveal some things about even that story that many people are unaware of. But the Montgomery Bus Boycott of 1955 was a big deal because it really launched the civil rights movement. King was actually placed in the front of that movement. I think there were other players who really organized and got it started. King was a gifted orator, and so he could really rally people. And so that was one of the reasons why he was placed in the front of what was happening there. What was interesting to me, and I think there were things that the Montgomery Bus Boycott got right. Rosa Parks decides she's sitting actually in the front of the black section of the bus. She's sitting in the front of the colored section of the bus. The pictures that you'll see on social media will have her sitting in the front of the bus, and she actually wasn't sitting that far. She was actually sitting in the front of the colored section of the bus. And she was asked by the bus driver to move. And of course, we know the rest of the story. She decides not to and gets arrested, and then the march begins. Well, the thought was that they would boycott. They would stay off of the buses and wait for the opportunity for desegregation of those buses so that they could be rightly treated. Again, the other part about that was interesting is they only thought, King and other leaders really thought it would be more like a 1 to 3 day event. Like they thought it was going to be no more than a handful of days that they would be off the buses and that the bus system would capitulate and that would be it. Well, the bus boycott actually ended up taking place for about 380 some odd days. I mean, it was more than a year that it took place. When you think about the makeup of what took place, and this first boycott, I believe the civil rights leaders got right. I believe they got right. I just feel like they missed some pieces. And by that, here's what I mean. Blacks were 70% of the patrons on the bus system. So they walk off of the bus system, and the bus system and the city lose all of those revenue. So at the time, it was about $3,000 a day, and in 2022 dollars, that's about $31,326 a day that the city was losing. And if you go back and look at the city budget at the time, it was more than a quarter of their budget that they were losing during the course of a given time. So this had a massive economic impact on the city. The thing that was interesting was the impact for Blacks was exponential as well, because what we did was we took those dollars or those dimes, because it was about a dime, 10 cents to ride the bus, and we ended up paying it to people who would begin in our own communities that would take us from A to B. So rather than paying the bus or the city, you were paying someone else within your own community that looked like you that was going to take you from A to B, or you bought a bike or did whatever, saved the money, what have you. But the economic impact in the Black community, again, was exponential because we made money. Now, unfortunately for King and for others, that was never the focus. What they created now, because they had to do this for a year, for 380 some odd days, they had to do this. So it created an economic boom in our own communities. But they weren't focused on that. They were so focused on desegregation and rather than self-reliance, and all of this was done with the church was a primary place where a lot of this stuff was actually happening. So they were pushing forward with that. And in the meantime, there was a Supreme Court decision, Browder v. Gale, that actually went up through the Supreme Court, and they won. They got the victory in that the buses were desegregated, and a massive blow was struck at Jim Crow. So the beauty of this is that the Supreme Court decision actually showed it tested the Constitution. And,
right.
and then in that regard, the Constitution maintained, it stayed, it worked. What would happen after was something different. I think the system that we began to choose to advance civil rights began to shift from constitutional tests, which it should have been, to civil rights acts. And there's a massive